everybody, and welcome to the Magical Learning Podcast for this week. I'm your host, Jez FM. Magical Learning Podcast is a podcast that looks at important topics in business and life and breaks them down in a fun and lighthearted way. This week, we've got an author corner, which is where our Director of Learning and resident author here at Magical Learning, Danette Fenton-Menzies, chats with another author. And this time, it's author, entrepreneur, and recruitment expert Richard Triggs. If you're struggling to keep employees or struggling to find them, and you want to recruit people that are actually good, this is a crucial conversation. Richard actually started as an aspiring rock star, and then he turned into a recruitment consultant and author. That journey is really interesting, but all of his insights are fantastic. This conversation between him and Danette is really, really interesting. And if you want to hear a bit more about his book, Uncover the Hidden Job Market, you can hear a lot about that in here as well. Anyway, I think without further ado, let me throw over to Danette and Richard Triggs for this Author Corner. Have a magical week.
Hello and welcome to the Magical Learning Podcast. And today I've got a wonderful guest, Richard Triggs. And Richard, I'd love to start and welcome you by asking, how's your week been so far?
Well, it's been a great week, thanks, Danette. As I was explaining to you just prior to we starting to record, in more recent years, I've been training as a psychotherapist, and I had the opportunity to take one of my clients, who is the owner of a law firm, up to work with a particular psychotherapist that I have a relationship with. And it's really interesting to be able to delve deeply into the minds of senior leaders and business owners. So that's been a lot of fun. And my business has got lots of exciting opportunities happening. So it's been very busy, and I'm loving life.
Oh, I love that, Richard. So let's find out a little bit about you and your life before we talk about your books.
Okay, excellent. Well, look, I was born in Canada. My parents are both English, but my father was an academic. And so as an academic, what they do is they move around universities around the world, and that's how they get promoted. Anyway, I was born in Edmonton, Alberta. The year I was born, I think it was the coldest winter they'd had in history. It was minus 42 degrees centigrade.
Ouch.
And I think my parents lasted 2 years and said, oh, let's get the hell out of here.
Yeah.
So I ended up in Australia when I was 4, moved to Brisbane when I was 12. When I finished high school, I had grand aspirations of being a rock and roll star. And so I toured Australia playing in bands as a guitarist for about 4 years. And I ended up in Melbourne chasing a record deal. And I just came to a realization that, this music business is hard. You've got to be very lucky, very talented. And so I rang my parents. I think I was about 22. And I said, oh, Mum and Dad, I need to come home and go back to university. So anyway, that's what I did. I did a Bachelor of Commerce majoring in marketing and HR. And then I went down, a fairly typical corporate career. That my sort of most substantial employer during that period was P&O. I was working their building services division, and I went from sales to operations to general management, etc. And then when I was in my early 30s, I had joined a smaller private business, and I was essentially the COO. Yes. The CEO was at the time only 50, and he'd taken equity in the company. And I'd realized that there wasn't a lot of further career growth for me there. I was doing an executive MBA, and I went to see a recruiter that I'd been a client of, and they said, oh, have you ever thought about being a recruitment consultant? And I went, no, I haven't. And so I fell into recruitment, in my, I guess, early to mid 30s. I worked for a couple of firms, and then I started my own business in 2009. So we're now 15 years old. We're called Arete Executive. Arete is a Greek word. It means the fulfillment of one's full potential. Wow. And yeah, so I've had this recruitment company now for 15 years. We're quite innovative in the way that we provide our services to our clients. And then I suppose more pertinent to our conversation today, In 2015, I wrote a book called Uncover the Hidden Job Market: How to Find and Win Your Next Senior Executive Role, very much aimed at the job seeker. And then I wrote a new edition of that book in October 2023. And I should say, anybody who'd like a free copy of that book, if they go to my website, and I'm sure you'll put that in the show
We
notes,
will.
if anybody's looking for a job and they want a copy of that book, and I have a bunch of webinars and a whole bunch of other resources, which are all completely free, they can just do that. And then
Thank you, Richard.
I wrote a second edition of that book, which came out October last year, the sort of the post-COVID edition. And then I have a new book, which is literally at the printer right now, and it's called Winning the War for Talent: How to Attract and Retain Top Performers. So I've it's the other side of the coin. The first side is for the employee. How do you actually grow your career? How do you achieve the roles that you really would love to have? And then the second book is aimed at the employer. In this world where we hear this term, there's a war for talent, which I kind of think is just an excuse for being not very good at recruitment. But, how do I actually bring excellent people into my team? And then once they're there, how do I set them up for success? How do I maintain a culture which enables people to live their highest potential? So I'm a bit of an interesting cat in that at one point I lived 1 week in a month for 4 years in a Buddhist monastery.
Oh,
And
wow.
I've done a lot of sort of personal, spiritual growth. And I think that what I bring to the table is this kind of amalgamation of that MBA, corporate experience, recruitment experience, but also understanding that there is a deeper philosophy, there's a deeper meaning to life, and that people who really want to excel as a leader, they need to be able to embrace and capture both. And I'm sure, Danette, in your coaching work, again, us talking prior to starting the recording, we were talking about great leadership is about communication
Yes.
and about relationships, which I agree with 100%. That fundamentally at the end of the day, there is no greater leadership skill than being able to communicate and being able to build great relationships. And if you can do that, not only with your clients, but also with your team, then you have such a strategic competitive advantage, which is what we all want, right?
Yep, totally. And Richard, I love your generosity. Thank you. We will make sure that we include a link to your website and your book. And I just wanted to let our listeners and our viewers know that today we're going to concentrate on the new book and the employer focus. And we will have a team podcast where we look from an employee perspective and looking, if you're looking for jobs. So don't worry, we'll cover both books today, but we'll concentrate on the new one, which is at the printers as we speak.
It is. I'm actually doing my formal book launch in mid-August. So please, printer, make sure I have it on time.
Yes. I love that, Richard. And very excited for you for a book launch, because obviously writing books is a lot of effort, and to do two, that's extraordinary. And I love the fact that you've updated your first one too. So,
it's true. And the thing is, we've just employed a new VA based in the Philippines to do our newsletters and so on. And she's now using my content and putting it into ChatGPT. And, and ChatGPT is creating an article which is essentially written in my voice. And the latest one came out yesterday, and I read it and I went, "Oh my God, ChatGPT is better at writing than me. I'm already redundant as an author, and I don't even feel like I've started properly." So I tell you, this AI thing, it's exciting, but but boy, it's a game changer, that's for sure.
It sure is. And in fact, I had breakfast with a dear friend this morning. We were talking about AI. I watched a presentation by Kerwin Ray. I don't know if you know Kerwin.
I do, yeah.
Yeah, about his AI. And he put a video of using a video avatar. And he showed 10 months ago to today. 10 months ago looked very clunky, different hairline. The version today looks exactly and sounds exactly like him, and it is his avatar. And they just share it with the words, and off it goes.
I know,
and
but
it translates in English. Well, there's dangers.
There are, because a lot of this scamming now. The person goes, I think this is a scam, so they contact the boss. Do you really want me to transfer 150,000 into this account? And the boss is on the video going, yes, Richard, we definitely want you to. And it is a complete avatar.
Yeah.
I mean, far out. It's a shame, because I love the name of your podcast, Magical Learning. It's so magical. Like it truly is magic.
Yes.
And yet at the same time, it's hard not to have a high degree of skepticism or reservation, because, the dangers are so real.
Yes. Yeah. And it's navigating that whole space. We could spend a whole podcast just on that. But let's talk about your new book. And particularly, I'm really interested in a couple of questions. And my first one is, how do you interview if you're trying to ensure that you pick the highest quality person from that interview? Because I know sometimes people run a whole stack of biases, which mean they tend to employ like themselves, etc. And that may not be appropriate for a particular position. So I'm really curious, what did you find out as you were writing your book? And I bet based on those 15 years of experience as well.
Sure. Well, look, firstly, let me tip my hat to an American guy named Lou Adler, who wrote a book, I think back in about 2006. It's called Hire with Your Head. And Lou was an engineer, and he wanted to develop a recruitment methodology that would be a greater predictor of success. And I was very fortunate early in my recruitment career to have the opportunity to be trained by Lou. And so I reference, him in my book. But obviously, a lot of things have changed since that time. So I jokingly say in my book, it's like Lou's book is the Old Testament and my book is the New Testament. But before you get to the interview, the first thing is to really clearly understand, what are you actually hiring this person to do?
Nice.
And there's a lot of organizations, in fact, I would say the majority, who go, oh, we need to hire a new sales manager. We've got a pretty generic position description. We are delegating the recruitment responsibility either to our internal HR team or an external recruiter, or perhaps you're doing it yourself. But the reality is that each job is unique. And so to give you a quick example, so a similar company recruiting a similar sales manager, similar position description. So what we talk about is, you want to hire somebody who's done it before, they've done it well, and they're motivated to do it again. So you need to be able to clearly articulate, what do I need this person to do? What does success look like? So one company might say, our prior sales manager was, really terrible. They're narcissistic. We've had a lot of issues with retention. We've had a lot of issues with, really having a culture of high performance within our sales team. So we need somebody to come in, and we need them to, for the first 3 months, throw their arms around the team, give them lots of love, rebuild the vision, rebuild the values. And then, essentially once that is done, then move into the next step of their role. So first 3 months, it's just, we can't afford to lose these people. We need to love them, our clients and our candidates. Another company might say, look, we're under massive pressure. We have competitors now sourcing products similar to ours from India or China, And so if we can't reduce our costs of goods sold by 25% within 3 months, we are in big trouble.
Yeah.
So we need a sales manager who can come in, can look at how do we reduce our costs. And then the third example might be, we're really excited. We've got a new product to launch into a new market. We need our sales manager in the first 3 months to be able to present to the CEO and the board, where are the opportunities? What is the right market? Where's the low-hanging fruit? If we could, generate $5 million in sales with this new product within 12 months, that would be amazing. So 3 similar companies, 3 similar position descriptions, but 3 very different types of people.
Yep.
So unfortunately, what happens a lot of the time is that the person delegated to recruit the role doesn't have that visibility.
Yep.
And so if you don't know what success looks like, it's very hard to hire.
Yeah.
So there's a lot to it. And obviously, there's a lot of steps in between. But when it comes to the interview, what Lou Adler talks about is bringing somebody in for an interview. So let's say that I'm interviewing you, Danette, for this sales manager role. And, we do the whole, hi, how you going? Give me a sort of a quick career history, as you did for me at the beginning of this podcast. And then I say, look, Danette, just reflecting on your more recent career, let's say the last 5 years or so, what are you most proud of? What would you hang your hat on and say, this is why I'm excellent at my job? And you say, I worked for this company and we had this new product and I launched it into this new market and it was absolutely fantastic. We achieved 24% market share and I'm really, really proud of that. Excellent. Now, if my client, if that's what they want, you are probably a great, match for their role.
Yes.
But if my client's looking to reduce cost of goods sold by 25%, you may be an excellent sales manager, but you're probably not right for this job.
Yes.
Right? So by being really clear and articulating what does success look like and hiring somebody who's done it before, done it well, and they're motivated to do it again, they're much more likely to succeed. And so again, obviously a very quick explanation, but the wonderful thing about interviewing in that way is people love to talk about what they're good at.
Yeah.
Right. And so it's not an interview where I am, there are still recruitment companies and there are still employers that ask dumb questions like, oh, Danette, so what do you think is your 5 key strengths? Or what do you think is your area for further professional development? And of course, everybody, if they've got half a brain, they know the right things to say. Oh, I'm a team player and blah, blah, blah. And, what's my weakness? I work too hard. Or they'll say, if you were to describe yourself as an animal, what animal would you be and why? Right. And you go, I'm much more interested in, can this person do what I need them to do? Now, if I was interviewing you and you said, okay, what is my key achievement? Well, I launched a new product into a new market and Okay, great. Okay, so Danette, so one of the situations here with this particular company is, they need to remain competitive by reducing costs of goods sold because they're facing significant competition. Danette, can you tell me about an achievement that you've had in that regard?
Nice.
And it may well be that you do have an appropriate achievement, or it might be that you go, So it's actually a very simple way to interview. It's a very fun way to interview, and it gets excellent results.
Love that.
The thing is, most leaders, and the reason that I wrote my book is most leaders will go, I've employed hundreds of people in my career. I've recruited all different kinds of roles. So what do I need to learn about hiring? But the reality is, if you're struggling to attract and retain top talent, what my favorite saying in business is the truth is the result. Okay. If you say, I've got an awesome team, they are high achievers, I have excellent retention, then you probably don't need to read my book. Okay. But most of us, including me, I wish that I'd read my book when I started my business 15 years ago, because recruitment and retention, it's hard.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, I love
Yeah.
that. Love that answer, Richard. And I am already thinking of a client that I'm going to send a link to this podcast straight after it's published, because they're often looking for salespeople, and I don't think they've necessarily thought about those distinctions that you brought out. So that was a fabulous answer.
I tell you, it's interesting. Even recruiting CEOs, I
Yes.
might meet with a board and say, okay, so let's talk about what does success look like. What do you want this person to have achieved within the first 3 months, 6 months, 12 months? And they go, I don't know. And it's like, okay, you're going to pay this person $400,000,
Yeah.
but you don't know what you want them to achieve.
Mm.
That's unfortunate, and so I suppose with my experience, what I'm very good is guiding them to become clear about what they want.
Nice.
But it's not normal.
Yeah.
Yeah. It is truly a skill that once you become adept at becoming very clear and engaging the various stakeholders and making sure that everybody's on the same page, then you're in a far greater position to attract the person that you truly need to do the job.
And I love your strengths, Richard, and I really love, because that's a beautiful value add to obviously people who are very time poor anyway. So people on boards, senior execs who are recruiting, etc. So to be able to have someone to help them get that clarity is super important, because there's a lot of time and money, and it's not just their physical money, but the investment of their time to get
Absolutely.
this right. So I love that.
Yeah, and the cost of a poor hire is not just salary. It's the cost in terms of potential lost revenue.
Yeah.
It's the cost in terms of, damaging your culture. People don't really think about that. And so what happened was LinkedIn became a thing, and then LinkedIn created a subscription tool called LinkedIn Recruiter. And so all of these companies said, rather than paying $60,000 per placement. Again, I work in the leadership space. Let's employ, Sally to do our recruitment for us. And instead of paying $60,000 per placement, we can pay Sally $100,000, and she can, make 50 placements for us in a year. So we're getting a much better return on investment. Recruitment is a regrettable spend.
Yes.
Right? Nobody goes, oh, wow, I just paid a recruitment company $80,000. Wasn't that awesome? But they've employed internal recruitment teams. But often these internal recruiters are working on, upwards of 20, 30, 40 jobs at a time. They're not being briefed properly. Their performance is not being measured properly. One of the critical things, if I could get on my soapbox for 1 second, is that a lot of employers, they will put an ad on Seek.
Yes.
The ad will be fairly generic. They won't put anybody's name or phone number on the ad for a candidate to ring up. Yeah. And so you imagine a good candidate looks at your ad and they go, I might be interested in that role, but before I apply, I'd love to ring somebody and ask some questions to determine whether I want to make the investment of time to apply, especially if it's with one of my competitors. Oh, there's nobody's name or phone number to ring. I won't apply.
Yep.
Or on the other side of the coin, a candidate applies. 8 weeks later, they say to me, Richard, I applied for this job at, pick a name, any name, Rio Tinto. I don't even know if I'm in consideration. I don't even know whether I've had no acknowledgement of my application.
Wow.
And imagine how much damage that does to your brand as an employer of choice, because there's nobody that they can ring up and ask. Now,
Yeah.
I've spoken at HR conferences and I talk about this regularly, and these people go, you know what, Richard, I know that I should put my name and phone number on the ad, but I don't want to talk to candidates. I'm either too busy
Ouch.
or too many competing priorities, or I don't want to do it. Well, to me, that seems ridiculous. You want to attract top talent, but you don't want to make yourself accessible for people to call you.
Yeah.
Get a new job.
I love that because by speaking to people, they might not be right for that job, but they
Well,
might be right for other things, mightn't they?
completely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. At the end of the day, recruitment, whether you're doing it yourself or you're using an external recruiter like RTA Executive, it's all about communication and relationships.
Yeah.
And if there's no ability to communicate and thereby build relationship, you're literally trying to recruit with one arm tied behind your back. So if people listening to this, if there's one takeaway, if you only take away one thing, if you are advertising a role, put somebody's name and phone number on the ad. The difference to the quality of application pool you'll have will be substantive. The second thing, of course, is, good people aren't looking for jobs. They're in jobs, they're relatively well paid, they like their boss, they're not looking at Seek, they're not looking at LinkedIn. They have to be headhunted.
Yes.
Okay. And so if your entire recruitment process is based on praying, please God, let the right person apply to my job, then once again, you're really limiting the quality of talent that you attract. And so that's where finding an organization to partner with, particularly for those mission critical or senior roles who can actually do that headhunting for you, because it is very time consuming, is a great thing to do. In saying that, my book is written to the employer. It's not an advertisement for RTA Executive. These are the things that you need to do in order to attract the best quality people. Okay. As an employer, you can definitely do this yourself. If you've got the time and the resources, why would you pay a recruiter? I get it, but very few organizations, they pay a lot of lip service to, our greatest asset is our team. But really, are you actually doing the things that evidence that you truly believe that? Not really.
Yeah. And, Richard, I have a finance background and people talk about the expense of things like recruitment. But for me, it's like, if this is a super important position, which they often are, particularly at the senior levels, this is an investment in getting the right person that's going to have the right impact. And as you said, the skills that you've gathered over those 15 years to be able to help them identify exactly what does success look like, and then making sure that the person who comes into that job actually can do it, that is such a good investment in time, effort, energy, etc. So for me, there are really good spends where a lot of organizations, like I invest a lot of money in myself and my learning and my growth, and in my team, because we are a learning company. So we need to be able to prove that we are up with the latest things. So for organizations, maybe take off that this is going to be an expense, but actually think about, we want to invest so we create a great organization. Great organizations need great people. And sometimes we don't have the capacity in-house to be able to do that. And often we don't. And as you said.
For sure. And I think there's also, the old opportunity cost.
Yes,
it's
totally.
like the distraction from me doing my day job is more significant than what I'm paying. Again, whether I'm paying for an internal recruiter or paying for an external recruiter, people see the cost of it, but they don't realize that actually, in terms of the time it saves them, is far more valuable.
Yeah.
But the great thing about the market now, and in particular LinkedIn, is that good candidates are much more accessible. It is a lot easier to provide a headhunting solution than it would have been, let's say, 10 plus years ago.
Yeah.
And so there are companies now, of which Arate is one, but there are companies which are able to offer far more cost-effective solutions, which means that traditional gigantic expense
Yes.
is a lot more reasonable now. But anyway, I don't want people to think I'm sitting here promoting Arate Executive.
You should anyway.
Oh, of course. I mean, I love what I do and I love helping people. I think I reached a point in my life, Danette, where I just came to a decision, you know what? As long as I'm happy and helpful, the
Nice.
universe will look after me. And so that's how I run my life now. I just want to be of service. And, it's worked for me so far.
And I love that. And that's totally my value as well.
Yeah,
Richard, it's so important. And it makes for a beautiful, fulfilling life.
completely.
All right. Let's talk about the next question, which is really and we talk a lot about culture in organizations, particularly cultures of performance, from top down, etc. So when we bring a new employee into our organization, how do we show them this culture and embed them in that culture of high performance and hopefully joy to work in the workplace, etc.? How do we do that if someone's starting from day one?
Well, that's a great question, and I tell a story in my book. When I was about 24, I was working for P&O, and I was in a sales role,
Yes.
and the manager of the Cairns business,
Yes.
Cairns in Far North Queensland, I went up there to do some sales, and I just fell in love with the place. And then not long after that, that manager resigned. And I went to my boss and I said, "Oh, yeah, I'd love to go up there and run this business,"
Yeah.
which at the time was about 100 employees. And I think I was about 26 or so. And, I'd never managed people, certainly not in that regard. And fortunately, he took a chance on me, Peter King, who I
Nice.
still have a great relationship with. And he told me a story, which I talk about in the book. And it's the story of the king and the jester.
Yes.
And so the king and the jester are in court one day, and at the end of the day, when everybody's left, they sit down and they're having a beer. And the king says to the jester, "You know what? You must have the best life. Like, you get to have fun all the time. You get to party and make jokes, and you don't have to take anything seriously. It must be so wonderful to be the jester." And the jester says, "Well, you know what? It's actually not that great because, oh, sure, it's fine to have fun all the time, but there are times when I want people to take me seriously." And people go, "Oh, you're just a jester." And so, it's very hard for me to actually have meaningful relationships because people just treat me like I'm a joke. He says to the king, "But your life must be amazing. Like, you get to be the king and tell people what to do and sit on the throne, and that must be awesome." And the king says, "Well, actually, my life, is pretty crap too, because, there are times that I just want to let my hair down and have fun. And of course, people know that I'm the king, so that nobody will have fun with me." And so what they decide to do is they decide to swap jobs for a month. And at the end of the month, at the end of court, they sit down and they're having a beer, and the king says to the jester, "So how did you enjoy being the king for a month?" And the jester says, "Oh, I didn't like it. Yes, I sat on the throne, and yes, I wore the crown. But anytime I tell somebody what to do, they'd go, 'Oh, we know you're just a jester. You might be dressed up as a king, but, we know that you're just a jester.'"
Yep.
And the jester says to the king, "How did you enjoy being the jester?" And the king goes, "It was awesome. It was fantastic. I got to have so much fun and really enjoy hanging out with people. But at the end of the day, they still knew that I was the king." And so if I said something and it was serious, they knew it was serious. And so what's the moral of that story? Start hard and get soft. Too many leaders start soft, and then they can't get hard.
Yes.
So they go, oh, I've invested all this money and all this time in recruiting Danette, and I bring her in, and there's a clear articulation because we've got a performance profile. What are the key deliverables in the first 3 months, 6 months, 12 months? And, Danette comes in, and 2 weeks later, it's not happening. But, I want to be Danette's friend. It's okay. She'll come good. And Gary Vaynerchuk, who I'm sure you're familiar with, he's got this great little video, and he talks about how, hiring is such an egoic process.
Yes.
This idea of hire well, fire fast. Why don't people fire fast? Because it's almost an admission to self that I'm not very good at hiring because I hired somebody who's not very good. Yes. So I'm going to try and retain them and fix them, because if I don't, then I'm actually admitting to myself that I did a crappy job, right? And I'm as guilty of this as anybody.
Me too.
Persevering with people, right? So the idea is bringing somebody into a performance-based culture is you have to master the balance between love and accountability. If there's too much love and not enough accountability, people become soft, they don't perform, and this is true for both individuals and teams. Okay, and a business doesn't achieve its full potential. If there's too much accountability in terms of rigid, hard KPIs and not enough love, then people become either very brittle, and they either become very self-interested, they only care about achieving their own KPIs, or alternatively, they leave. So great leadership is about, how do I master the art of love and accountability? People want to be accountable, right? They want to do well. Nobody wants to come into a job and do a crap job, right? So they want to do well. And when they do well, they want to be acknowledged for doing well. So, again, in my book, I've got a number of frameworks, which is about, well, how do I actually set somebody up from the very first day that I employ them? Not only is this true for an employee, but it's true for teams that you manage. It's also true for how do you manage up. A lot of people will go, I want a pay rise, or I want a promotion, but I'm not getting it. My boss is an idiot or whatever. But there's, what conversation are you having about, what do I need to achieve in order for you to give me the pay rise, or in order for you to give me the promotion? So this can be used for managing up, managing down, managing relationships with external strategic alliances or clients or suppliers or whatever. And of course, fundamentally, it can be used for self. I find it very easy to hold other people accountable, but when it comes to holding myself accountable, it's like, I'm going to try and find every excuse under the sun to, I know that I need to exercise more and eat less, but I don't really like exercising and I love eating. So, long-winded answer, and you'll get to know Danette, I love to chat, is, the thing about it is that what most organizations and what most leaders do, number one, they don't really know what they're hiring for. Number two, they bring somebody in and they don't immediately instill, that expectation of high accountability.
Love that.
Okay, Danette, we're going to meet every week. And every week when we meet, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to do the numbers. With, again, you said your client who hires salespeople. Okay, so how many meetings, how many proposals, how many sales, What's the pipeline? And before we talk about anything else, we're talking about the numbers. Okay, you said you were going to do 15 client meetings. How many did you do? 3. Okay, well, what precluded you from doing 15?
Yeah.
Oh, my cat got stuck in the tree and, my husband wanted me to paint the fence or whatever it is, but if they are committing to 15 and within 4 weeks, it's 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 3, which I've had in my team.
Ouch.
What's the expression? You need to have a come to Jesus conversation, right? It's like, look, you're a fantastic person, but I've got to ask the question, is this really the right job for you? Because
Yes.
every week we say 15 and every week you deliver 2. And so perhaps this is not the right place for you to be. And in which case, with love in my heart, go and do something else.
Yeah.
Do you want to do 15 or do you want to leave?
Yep.
Yep. Again, easy to say, hard to do. There's another wonderful thing that was taught to me is this idea of, so right from the CEO down, I say to my direct report, so, I talk to my direct reports and I say, look, there's so much opportunity in the market. You could literally work for anybody else. However, you choose to work for me. Why do you love? Give me the 3 reasons that you love working for me. And it's really amazing, how varied people's responses are. And it's and there's an assumption that people, want the same things where they don't.
Yes.
And there's an assumption that people just want money, where in fact money is often, people want to be paid what they're worth.
Yes.
But money is not really a key driver, as long as they're being paid what they're worth. So what do you want? So why are the 3 reasons you love to work for me? Well, I love the variety of the clients. I love the fact that I can work from home and have that flexibility. And I love the fact that, I'm well remunerated, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Once that person tells you what are the 3 things that they love, assuming that you can give it to them, just keep giving them what they love.
Yes.
But it's a reciprocal relationship. They have to give you what you love. So what do I love? I want a high-performing employee who's a good culture fit, who behaves like an adult, they take responsibility. So this is a transaction. I will give you what you love as long as you also give me what I love. Now, if you say to somebody, why do you love working for me? And they go, if they don't love working for you, either find them a different job or let them go.
Yeah.
Because people want to, if we're going to spend more time in our workplace than we are with our family, you have to love it. And I think, again, a lot of leaders, and I'm sure you'd agree to that, it's like, oh, love. Like, I don't want to talk about love.
Oh, I love love.
It's all about love. It's all about love. Love is everything.
Yes.
I want a team who love to work for me.
Yes.
Right. And so the CEO needs to be saying to their direct reports, why do you love working for me?
Yeah.
And then the CFO needs to say to their direct reports, why do you love working for me? And then the management accountant needs to say to their direct reports. So this is a top-down approach.
Yes.
And it's not something that you can delegate to HR.
Yes.
Okay. HR has an important function. I'm not in any way being derogatory about HR, but the relationship, again, communication relationships, it's between the line manager and their direct report.
Yeah.
And it's a one-by-one individual unique thing. It's not a cookie cutter approach.
Yes.
And again, what you see with a lot of companies who aren't able to retain their people, particularly younger people, they go, oh, the younger generation, they're not loyal. They want too much money. They're not responsible, blah, blah, blah. It's like, well, have you actually taken the time,
Yeah.
to truly understand, why does this person want to work for you?
Yeah.
And are you delivering that? In most cases, no.
Yeah.
And then they have retention issues. And of course, losing a great employee is much more significant than just paying to re-recruit the role.
Yeah.
So it makes a lot of sense to try and retain your top performers. And again, using some pretty simple strategies, your ability to do that will be amplified tremendously.
Love that. Love that answer, Richard. And have we got time for one more question?
You can talk away.
Awesome. So my next question, and you referred to performance management frameworks in your last answer. How can you use them to actually drive that performance and accountability, both across the organisations, other shareholders, stakeholders, sorry, and yourself? How do you use those frameworks to really get everyone on board and moving in the same direction?
Okay, excellent. Great question. So, again, not a framework invented by me. I had an executive coach many years ago named Colin Clark, and he taught me a framework that, I've again adapted and brought into my book. But, all kudos and to Colin, is talking about what is current reality versus preferred reality.
Nice. I love that.
So once you have somebody in your team, so let's say, again, I've employed a new sales manager and they've been in the team for 3 months. They've achieved the immediate priorities of the performance profile as they understood it through the recruitment process. And then I say, okay, so 25th of July, as we're having this conversation. So I say, okay, Danette, so let's imagine it's the 25th of January. Is that right? Yep. 6 months from now. And what I want you to do is I want you to describe your business. Okay, without blue skying, I want you to just describe, what does your business look like?
Yep.
And, the person says, well, I've grown the team to, by another 3 direct reports. And we are now consistently achieving $2 million a month in sales. And we've won another 4 ASX 100 clients. And you love me so much that you've agreed to pay for my MBA. You go, excellent. Okay, right. So Danette, so if you were sitting here on the 25th of January 2025 and those things had been achieved, you'd be delighted. Oh, Richard, I would be delighted. Okay. Now, obviously, if the person says something that is incongruent with what I want as a boss, we need to sort that out. But okay, so all right, Danette, what I want you to do is I want you to imagine that you're actually, it is now the 1st of January 2025, and I want you to look back 6 months to today's date.
Mm-hmm.
And what I want you to do is to talk about, well, what are the things that you did in order to achieve this result, right? Now, there's a very specific reason for doing that.
Yeah.
I talk in my book about this idea of we have a conscious, a subconscious, and a superconscious. Okay, without getting to conscious and subconscious, but superconscious is where we dream.
Yes.
It's where everything from this mug to this phone, somebody had to dream it before it happened.
Yes.
Okay. So if you say, okay, so what are you going to do in order to achieve that? People are stuck in their current reality. Okay. If you say, you're there and you look back, what did you do?
Yeah.
It gets a person to engage, their dreaming mind. Okay. And then they say, okay, well, what I needed to do, okay, so let's just pick one of those things or 2 of those things. Okay. I want to grow the team by 4 people. So what were the things that you did? Well, what I did was every week I reached out to at least 3 people on LinkedIn who I thought might be suitable, and I had one coffee meeting. And, so that over that 6 months, by having one coffee meeting, a week, so that's what, 26 weeks,
Yes.
over that time, I will have found 3 people that I want to hire. Okay, excellent. And one of the other things was, I want to win 2 new ASX top 100 clients. Okay, so what did you do? Well, what I did is I looked through the ASX top 100. I looked at where the best opportunities were. I identified within the first month, I identified within each of those companies who would be the correct key decision maker. And then what I did is I took responsibility. I had 5 meetings a week with those people in order to secure those clients. Okay, great. So Danette, so what you're saying to me is, and now we're getting into some key KPIs, but I haven't told you what to do.
Yes.
You've decided. So therefore you're taking ownership. You're taking accountability, right? Whereas if I say you must do that. Now, obviously, if you said, I want to win 2 ASX 100 clients in the next 6 months. Well, what did you do? Well, I met with 1 client a month for 6 months. I might go, well, I don't know, Danette. I think that might be, I don't know that that's necessarily enough activity.
Yeah.
What more often happens is the employee sets too high an activity. Well, I'm going to go and do 20 meetings a week. Well, Danette, I don't know that it's really realistic that you do 20 meetings a week.
Yeah.
I think if you were to do 5 meetings a week, that's probably going to get the result that you need.
Yes.
And the employee goes, oh, fantastic. My boss only wants 5 meetings a week, right? Yep. And so each of these targets then become a very clear weekly KPI. I go, excellent. Okay, so Danette, so what you've done is you have determined what you want to do. Yep. So part of my role as your leader is to hold you to accountability for that. Are you okay with that? Yes, Richard, I'm okay. The last thing they're going to say is, no, I'm not, right? Yeah, of course. Yes, Richard, I am. And the other thing too, Danette, I want you to tell me, what do you need from me to support you to achieve those things? Written down in a table, the first thing, every meeting. First thing is, okay, let's do the numbers. Okay, so did you have your coffee meeting with a potential employee this week? Oh, yes, Richard. In fact, I had 3. Oh, that's excellent. Did you do your 5 meetings with your ASX? Well, actually, I only got time to do 2 because I was more busy meeting with the 3 potential employees. Okay, well, perhaps we need to think about how do you readjust your priorities, because really, you've prioritized a lower priority task over. So it becomes a very, again, communication relationships. A very, very easy way to manage people. People love to be accountable. And what you'll find is that somebody, the first 2 or 3 weeks or 4 weeks, there might be a bit of, this is a bit uncomfortable. But then they start, okay, how many meetings did you have? I had 10 meetings. You had 10. You're only meant to have 5, 10. That's amazing, And then it's, again, people love to be praised.
Yeah.
People love to be rewarded. They don't have to be rewarded financially. Yeah. But, again, in a team situation, a quick example, we recruited a CFO for a major musical not-for-profit in Queensland. And the former CFO hadn't been interested in the performance element of the business. Yes. They didn't attend any performances. Wow. They very much sat in their silo. Their team sat in their silo, the finance team, and there was a real cultural issue.
Yeah.
The performance part of the business, which is the operations, felt the finance team aren't interested in what we do. They're not engaged. We don't have a good relationship. And so, again, talking to the team, in 6 months' time, What do you want? Oh, we'd love to have a great relationship with the performance side. Okay, well, what are we going to do in order to do that? Well, and then you go, okay, great. So what did you do? Well, we organized meetings and okay, who's going to take accountability for that? Da, 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 da. And so it can be done at an individual level. It can be done as a team level. It
Nice.
can be done in terms of talking to your boss.
Yep.
If you're starting a new relationship with a key client,
Yes.
let's imagine in 6 months' time and our relationship is going superbly. What does it look like? Well, it looks like da, 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 da. Okay, what are the things that we did in order to get that? Okay, what's my responsibility? What's your responsibility? Each time we meet, are you okay that we hold each other to account for those things? We've recently, we have an agreement with an ASX top 100 company to do all of their sales recruitment. And they
Nice.
have 250 salespeople in their business.
Yep.
And we have a weekly and a monthly accountability meeting with the client.
Nice.
Where there's very clear expectations. What's your responsibility? What's our responsibility? And it's going fantastic because, again, the communication is there.
Yep.
The relationship is there. We want a relationship where we are a trusted advisor to the business.
Yes.
And we want a relationship with a client where they communicate effectively and appropriately with us. So it just makes business easy.
Yes. I
But
love that.
once again, it takes time to learn how to do it
Yes.
and then to implement it and then be consistent with it. Consistency is the key.
Yeah. Totally agree. Totally agree, Richard. Richard, what a fabulous conversation. And let's remind our listeners and our viewers that Richard's new book that is coming out is called Winning the War for Talent.
Correct.
And we will share links to that on our podcast and YouTube descriptions. And Richard, can't wait to have you back and have a conversation from the employee perspective and people who are looking for work. But can I say thank you so much, and wishing all of our listeners and our viewers a very magical week.
We all love magic, Danette. Magic is where the joy comes from.
It is. It is.